Sorry.
Did I ruin your intro at all? No.
Oh, keep
got the
going.
first words
I'm
out.
done.
He's done.
What? I just was waiting for a week all of our life to say this.
For all of our life.
All of our life. Wow.
Explain it though, because there's people with audio that have no idea what you're talking about.
It's
This
just
is,
Greg
this
and
is the
Scott
first.
talking.
This is the first time we've podcast with all 5 of our pastors. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think so.
I think so.
Unless you did it without me.
But then you wouldn't be there.
That was a funny joke.
Scott
too.
makes a joke.
Sorry.
Rachel
Thanks for
describes the
joining
joke.
us.
Here we are.
Okay, now intro again.
What are we talking about this week?
Christmas.
It's our last message on
It's
Christmas.
Emmanuel.
Yeah, it is.
Christmas series.
God with us.
Yeah, I last week we started off. Greg, you weren't here, so we talked quite a bit about Christmas.
Well, 2 weeks ago.
Oh yeah, no, well, yeah, 2 weeks we
We
did.
talked
You were
about
here.
Christmas for a little bit.
This is our 3rd week of Christmas.
It's been the Christmas story is a good one because we all have degrees of. That's too strong a statement. A lot of people have familiarity with the story. From if it's as little as you go, well, I've seen the thing hanging or out in front of the mainstream church. There's like a little house with
Oh yeah, the little
That's
nativity.
Mhm,
a
that's the
baby that is inappropriately wrapped and not wrapped in warm enough clothes to be outside like that.
For sure,
Yeah, I know.
especially in
They
Minnesota.
weren't in
house.
Minnesota.
I don't know.
It was warmer.
I don't know where they got a Vikings hoodie, but
And always the barn is always like 1 foot deep.
dude,
Babies in the front.
We're nailing it right now. The Christmas story is good because we have a lot of familiarity to it. But the challenge of the Christmas story is that it's very easy to, I don't know, think about some of its nuances. I'm not plugged in and it's about to die.
His computer is dying.
good.
Sorry.
I think we should circle back around after the new year to this podcast.
You can think about situations as kind of a means to their end. And you just go, the Christmas story is about shepherds. They sang to angels. And no, it's not right. The angels
would be fascinating, though.
or it's about wise men and they received they brought the gifts to Jesus and stuff. And the goal of what we've been talking about over the last month, this will be 3 weeks, is how we can see the character of God through and in the Christmas story.
It's true. We have been. It's been
Okay.
good. Sorry. No, I was still a little distracted by the
Shepherds
shepherds
singing
singing
to
to
angels.
angels. I know. I visualized. I'm like, oh wow.
What was talked about last week?
Last week, you want me to think about a week ago?
So we 3 things we've talked
Unlikely.
about. He's relatable. Week number 1.
Yep.
Shepherds
Accessible.
and wise men were part of the story, and those were unlikely characters to be in the story.
Unexpected. Yes, there we go.
And because of that, everybody, it just shows this picture. The character of God is that everybody's invited to the table. And, who's the unlikely character? It's us.
I am now picturing a choir that's been practicing together forever, shows up, they're world famous, and the tone deaf people go, hold up.
Let me sing to you.
Let me sing Don't Stop Believing for you.
And then that's funny. This week's about God with us.
Yeah.
Emmanuel.
What about the United Service?
Yeah.
You
It
talked
was
about that. That was the
unexpected.
unexpected.
We're talking about unexpected
Wow,
people. We're having a hard one this morning, but it's a good morning. It's God with us. God with us. That's what we're talking.
We have to start over.
Oh,
we
man.
skipped over the fun. That was the.
Is that what happened? I think this has been a lot of fun. This has been a lot of fun.
The idea of God's availability to unexpected people shows why we are
Humble beginnings. That was week 1. Yeah, sorry. Unexpected
You
characters.
said it.
Did I? Oh.
Yeah, you said it all. You just didn't know you said it.
He said it without realizing what he said.
I kept
And
on
this
waiting.
We're talking about Easter. So,
How does somebody have, like, what are the different ranges of perspective of God being with us? So I just think about people in our world, people in your local, it's people that think about it a lot or people that don't think about it at all. What are the range of perspectives of God's presence?
I think the majority of people don't have perspective that God's with them. I mean, I grew up in pretty much this similar church faith tradition, and God was still always something that was either in the sky or in the church building or something that we all would get together and summon. I don't know. It was-
Sunday morning,
Yeah.
Where two
third
or
psalm.
three
Yeah.
are gathered, there he is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
It's-
really abstract. It's really hard to wrap your head around.
It's crazy that, that not just the church you grew up in, but there is a group. It's very easy to be part of a group of people that is like, God is relevant. I'm worshiping Him. I identify as being a follower of Him, and with us. I don't know. What about people that are completely out? Do you think people that have either other faith surrounding or no faith surrounding it in their life, what are their perspectives? Do people think about it at all?
I don't know, because it's like kind of that sight unseen moment. So it's like if you're not seeing it, if you're not experiencing it, like I feel like it's really easy to put it out of your mind.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think like it's, at least for me, if it's sight unseen, it's really easy to forget about it.
I think there's a ton of people who just life is life. They just live their life and they don't really think about it. And if you ask them about it, they'll say, "Yeah, there's probably a higher power, but I don't know. We can't know him."
Yeah.
There's a ton of agnostic thinking.
So is agnostic the default setting?
I would say it is. I would say there's a lot of people that would say atheistic is the default setting.
I actually think having faith is the default setting. I think it's harder to be
Yeah.
agnostic or harder to be atheist than it is to actually believe,
Why do you think that?
because the vast majority of humans that have ever lived have had some faith
Yeah.
in something, not necessarily Christianity, but people have always been looking for a reason why things are the way they are. And so most humans that have ever lived have had their reason of why things are the way they are. And agnosticism is the admitting that maybe we don't know. And so I think that's a much harder way to live, or harder belief to actually carry.
I feel like this is connected. Like I was reading a brief article on the James Webb. It's a
Telescope.
yes, satellite telescope. But they're talking. The article was writing about how, with the expansion of the universes, there's a spot where it's moving faster than the speed of light, and that's where it just becomes black. You'll never be able to see it because it's moving faster than the speed of light. And the question was like, how do we ever perceive what's beyond there? And in that moment, I mean, it was not the point of the article, but I just go, ouch. How can this thing be so big without something, right? Just like there has to be deity when you just go. So if you go so far beyond, where all of a sudden it makes your mind break. And I feel like some of the I don't know if it's scientific or whatever, some realities you just go, not just coincidental or happenstance, but just things are so big, and it does. I feel like it pushes to a default of faith, and that there has to be something.
When I think about things being so big and so vast and like beyond my comprehension, and then you think about Emmanuel, God with us, and it's like things are so big, and then we also bring it in, and it's like he's with us here, and I don't know, like it also breaks my brain a little bit, like just it feels I don't know, bigger than me for sure.
Well, that's what we're talking about today. It's the huge. It's a bending statement that if God, who understands what is on the other side of the wall of endlessness,
Yeah.
also then would zoom in so close to be born as a baby, be present to walk amongst us is that truly is probably more mind breaking than the idea of there would be, like maybe Greg, what you said is that the faith that there is something is probably maybe a default setting, but faith that that something would care about you as an individual in this time and this place is that's a remarkable thing and hard to wrap your head around, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think an important part is that you can't. It's just like you. Well, Scott, you gave us these gifts, and as soon as I've been around you long enough that as soon as I see something, I can go, Scott made that
Mhm.
because I know you and I have a relationship with you, and I see how you've created things over time. I think in the same way, as we get to know God better, we have those moments where we go, oh, that's God at work. Like we can
Yeah.
see God at work because we know him, we know his personality, we know the way he operates, the things that he cares about. And so for me, that's what this faith process is all about. It's knowing God better so that we can recognize him at work rather than like what I feel like I grew up in was like God came to us when we were at church on Sunday.
Yeah.
I feel like my faith has changed to my responsibility is to see God at work in the world around me. Like my faith says he is at work. My job is to figure out how do I actually recognize it.
Yeah, which really goes to a big part of what we're talking about, this presence of God being with us, is that there's a recurring theme in the Gospels focused on the idea of the shepherd. And I feel like it's exactly what you're talking about, is that we can very quickly go, all right, Jesus, you are the good shepherd. And my prayer, my effort, my actions is to find you. And a sheep does not have the responsibility of finding the shepherd. The sheep does not have the responsibility of wooing the shepherd. The sheep does not have the responsibility of convincing the shepherd to care for me, come to me.
Not only not responsibility, but completely unable to.
Unable.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sheep are stupid.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and so when we, it's pretty defaming to the good shepherd to go, let me. What we're going to do together is we're going to have some degree of impressiveness to you, shepherd, so that you would do or care or be something for us. And I think the God with us is not because we Beetlejuiced it. Is that,
Do we have to say God with us 3 times?
Oh.
Is that what?
You got a pop culture thing.
thank you. From the 70s, no, 80s.
Oh, it came out this year. Second one.
Oh.
Yeah. Good job.
Nailed it.
Didn't know.
You didn't realize it, but you did it.
But I feel like I can wrap my head around and say that, yeah, it's not up to us, but I feel like at the same time, I feel like it is totally up to me. And that's the beauty of Isaiah's words coming to be true, is that, that he will be born of a virgin, and you will call him, he will be Emmanuel, which is God with us. And Joseph hearing the angel say that to him, and he's going, you mean that thing that we've been 700 years? I think it was 700 years that it's been part of our culture, that born of a virgin, called Emmanuel. And Joseph goes, now? Me? What did I do? And then for us to realize that it's happening. He is God with us. And that is not something we have to convince or push or be. He is.
Yeah.
I think the step from it, I think we'll have some fun with that, is that we're going to be riffing on the Santa Claus is watching thing, because that Santa watching is to make the kids be good. And so then the question, I think, that is so important for us to process, that if I say, okay, I'll have a little bit of faith that God is with us, then is the impact of that just to make us good kids, or what is the impact of God being with us?
Silence. I think that's really big.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think too, you brought this up a little bit earlier. I said, he's, massive. He's created the universe and everything that's in it, but then, shrunk down to a tiny baby. And we're used to in our world, something's either big or small. An elephant is big, an ant is small. They don't exist like this. So
Yeah.
just thinking of that, that's kind of, to use that terminology, breaks your brain again.
Yeah.
And so, I know growing up, in the church, it was like, God's all powerful, and I just saw, that's what I saw, is he's just, massive and powerful,
Yeah.
and to really kind of understand what he, coming, showing up, in a manger, in a kind of a backwater area.
Yeah.
If he were to show up that way, big and huge, and just go, and just land, I mean, it would have been, been
It would have made
kind of
sense.
cataclysmic.
Yeah.
So instead, he just, just puts that tiny little, and so to think about how can he exist as this and this?
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
really good because I think I'm trying to think of things that are really. Is there anything that's really good at being big and small? I know that. I would say. To touch the third rail, I'd say that government is bad at that. I would say that corporations can be bad at that. I would say that I'm bad at that.
Being big and small.
I'm good at breaking things. Like it's hard to be. God is showing that he can be delicate to our fragility and create something that is infinite. That doesn't make any sense.
All powerful and relational and accessible.
Yeah.
Willing to be.
Yeah.
I was thinking about the Old Testament and like just how when they went back to Jerusalem and how important it was for them to build the temple again because that's where God dwelled. And like then this happens and all of a sudden, Jesus comes and then I don't know why you're laughing. But
I just had a funny thought and it's funny to me.
Jesus comes and then even when he dies and like rips the curtain and the temple is different. And I think like we're on the other side of that. And so even though like sometimes we grow up thinking God is only with us at church or whatever, it's his whole purpose is to show how he's with us all the time, how we're the temple and he's with us all the time. And so trying to understand that and then trying to experience, I don't know, it just is, it's pretty radical and it's also really hard to understand.
I think
Big and small.
Well, going back to the understanding is that I think the biblical example and the stories we'll mention on Sunday that show it is that you take the disciples when Jesus says, well, who do you say that I am? And Peter said, you're the Messiah. And so Peter had this moment of getting it, but getting it is a fluid thing. He proved in his life that getting it does not lead to eternal perfection.
No.
But that didn't change that Jesus was God with us. The Samaritan woman, such a great story, is that in this interaction that shouldn't have happened. Culturally said that Jesus and the Samaritan woman shouldn't have connection. And she goes, I know that the Messiah is coming and he's going to explain all this to us. This idea of the Jews worshipped in Jerusalem, we worship here on this mountain. Jesus declared, I'm here. You're the one. I'm the one. I'm the one speaking to you. And that was, again, here's, I think the thing that's really crazy about that narrative is the next words after that was said is that the disciples showed up and go, why is he talking to her? And so
Yeah.
there's Peter's self issues, and then there's the issues of the people that surround us. And I don't know if the disciples, even after the village that they were in, many of them followed or believed in Jesus, not because of what the woman said, because of what they experienced, is how the story ends. But I think maybe the disciples the whole time were going, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
And so Peter's imperfection and other people's imperfection, and then the last narrative is that you have the triumphal entry. And so then here's a group of people that get it, kind of. They're celebrating that Jesus is coming into Jerusalem as the Savior, but they think Savior, but of the wrong thing.
Yeah.
They save us from Rome, save us from our oppression, save us from our economic downturn, save us from, and the thing that, again, Peter, a moment, here's outside of you, imperfect, and then kind of getting it, and all of these things, which I think are available now, did not make it so that Jesus wasn't God with us. And so when we think, well, how do we, God, we really want you here with us now, please. Like, I feel like that can be my prayer. I mean, I'm not being dogmatic. I'm saying as a confession, it's always like, okay, God, today I need you to show up.
Yeah.
And I feel like God is going, okay. God, I need you to please care, please help. And yes, I think there is beauty in verbalizing what we want and need, but I think that there can be a nudge to our faith and our prayer and saying, instead of, God, I need you, to God, I trust you. God, will you, to God, I believe you are. And it's actually, when we do screw up in the midst of it, God isn't going, well, I was going to be with you.
But now.
But again, just to push a little bit into it, yeah, I was going to be with you, but the church you're part of isn't that good. I'm like, oh, well, the disciples were not that good. I was going to be with you, but you just don't seem to be it's not as real as it used to be to you. Or you're asking me for the wrong thing, all these things. And I just go, God is, he's so with us that he goes, I love you. Yeah.
That's good.
So, in the Christmas story.
All right, Rich.
I think all I could hear in what you were talking about right now, the idea of like, God, I need you to be here. I can just hear him being like, okay, I need you to be here. Like he just turns it around, because the idea of understanding God's presence is a reality and mindset shift.
That's good.
Saved for us, because we need to realize it. We need to know it. We need to know his presence, not try to invite his presence into something where he is.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Guys, church Sunday morning, we're going to stand up. We're going to invite God to be a part of it. Okay. I think does that mean if we don't, he's not?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think so.
Yeah, and I think you said it, but the barrier is not God's participation; it's our
Yeah,
participation.
exactly.
Always.
God, I need you to be.
God, I need you to be here. He's like,
I need you to be here. Yeah, exactly.
What are you talking about?
I love it. I think God with us is the Christian life. God with us is reality, and we talk about it at Christmas, but it is always. It's good.
We'll see you guys maybe next week. Are we podcasting next week? Sure.
Flip.
We'll see you guys next week.